Hi, it's Dr. Greg Jantz. Hope and possibility. Boy, do we need some hope. Hope dealing with the emotional abuser. What types of emotional abusers are they? It's next here on Hope and Possibility.
Dr. Gregory Jantz is a best-selling author of over 45 books and the founder of the Center A Place of Hope, voted a top 10 center for depression treatment in the U.S. As the pioneer of whole person care, Dr. Jantz is known as the messenger of hope. Now the nation's expert on anxiety, depression, substance abuse, relationships, trauma, and PTSD, here is Dr. Gregory Jantz.
Hi, Dr. Jantz here. We have been talking about, reaching for it, the book, the topic of emotional abuse, healing the scars of emotional abuse, and what we're seeing in emotional abuse. Today, we are talking about the various different types of emotional abusers. And you may identify, hopefully that you're not identifying yourself, maybe it's somebody you live with. And remember, there's two kinds of emotional abuse. There's the emotional abuser who grew up in an environment where there was a lot of that. It was childhood growing up, and that's kind of what you learned. And so you became a specialist in emotional abuse because, again, it was modeled for you in your environment. That was one type. The other type is the intentional, I'm going to hurt you, create harm, and the emotional abuser will do almost anything to create hurt in a person's life. Now, this comes in various forms. Could be some psychological disorders, could be some personality disorders, and maybe it's narcissistic personality, or there's types of personality disorders that have really a disconnect from empathy and compassion, and they will do harm. And so we know that the emotional abuser is a person who is not well in and of themselves, and the two words that go along with this is power and control. So remember, the abuser is about power and control. Now, what types of emotional abusers are there? And I'm sharing from my original 1992, though several revisions since then, title, Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse. Okay, how about this? I've got them right here. The overbearing opinion. This is a person that no matter what you say, no matter what you may have an opinion about, their opinion is the one that matters. And they're going to let you know it. Usually they're very, very verbal, and they're going to tell you what's best for you. Again, the overbearing opinion. There's no room for your thoughts or feelings because they are the one that, again, power and control. They are the one that's going to really be in a place where they're going to create a situation where it's only their opinion that matters. And one of the things that we know about this profile, if you will, is they are deeply insecure in and of who themselves are, and so their way of gathering some sense of personal value is by over pushing their opinion on everything and everyone. Okay? And the overbearing opinion, they really do believe, by the way, that they're right, or they really do believe that they know exactly what you ought to do every time. Okay, number one, overbearing opinion. Number two, it's related but a little different. It's the person who's always right. They may say things like, I told you so. You should listen to me. They're always right no matter what. Here's the thing about this type of emotional abuser. They will remind you of it. They are the person that is going to remind you that they were right, you should have listened to me, etc. So, as we know, the always right person is related to the overbearing opinion, but this is a person that's taking the directive, and they are saying to you that you should have listened, you didn't listen, and it is all your fault. Okay, the person that always has to be right. This could, again, come in various forms. It could come in the form of a loved one, a relative, or a boss, or a supervisor, but they're always right. Now, if we put this into context of a religious context, and let's say we have a pastor or a person who's leading a congregation, and they are always right, and they are telling you they're always right, and they're doing it in a way where, again, there's power and control. Well, what we call that ultimately what that can fall into is a cult-like behavior where you have one person ruling the others, and it is because they know best, because they're always right. All right. Then there's the put-down artist. I'm going through these somewhat quickly, just sake of time, but the put-down artist is a person that's going to probably compare you. Why can't you be like your sister? You know she is doing so well, and look at you. Now look at her. Do what she does. Okay, they're going to find a way to put you down. Sometimes they're going to overuse sarcasm, and sarcasm overused is not funny. It's not humor. It's a way of putting down another person. I put you down so that I can, what? Elevate or feel better about myself. The put-down artist. The stand-up comic is our next one. There's a number of these, but you'll identify quickly if you're living with a person like this. And yes, you can be a blend between these two, absolutely. But what we do know is that you're going to have a primary and probably a secondary form of abuse. So I'm just noticing, by the way, it's sunny here in the Pacific Northwest. It is radiating in my office. This is something new for us here. Just kidding. All right. Now, the stand-up comic who uses sarcasm is a person who is finding themselves misusing humor to put others down, or they're going to use this to deflect. I'm deflecting real issues by integrating humor, and I'm using humor that's not really funny as a way to put you down. All right. The great guilt giver. Oh, there are some homes that kind of specialized in guilt, and the great guilt giver is you feel, first of all, you feel slimed when a person tells you, you should be doing this, don't you feel bad? The great guilt giver, or the home where there's a lot of guilt, a word to describe what this does is shame. Overuse or misuse of guilt creates a sense of shame, and shame in our lives. And shame says, I feel defective. There's something wrong with me. And I feel that sense of, yeah, probably is my fault. You begin to take on and own things that really are not your fault. And you may feel like, well, if I live with a great guilt giver, you may end up feeling like, well, I probably deserved it. And you're the first one to say, I'm sorry. And you know what it's like to be around a person that motivates through guilt. You should be doing it, and there's a theme. And if you were really a good whatever, you would be doing such and such. Okay. Whew, the great guilt giver. It does. I use the word slime. I know, because it sounds like and feels like, man, I am being slimed. Because it feels like something that's on you, you can't get off. Different than the sunshine that's on me right now. It feels like you can't get it off. Okay, the historian. Oh, this is the person who uses the kitchen sink approach. They never forget anything. It's remarkable. They can remember what you were wearing when you did what. And they are going to come back at you with detail that is remarkable from something that happened 10, 20 years ago. The historian never forgets and never really forgives. So they're going to use the past against you. Here's the danger with the historian. They're going to be upset about one thing, but then they're going to start layering that on everything you ever possibly did nearly since the day you were born. And I'm kidding in a way, but they really are a specialist at not forgetting. And they'll use words like, well, you're always this way. You were this way since the day I met you. And so layering history, not always accurately, by the way, but they're the historian, and you can't argue with the historian because, right? They're right. You don't remember it like I remember. I remembered exactly what happened. So that's the approach. Okay. Whew. a historian. Okay, finally, I want to conclude this as far as the different types. There's a few more different types. I'm giving you the highlights of the different types. The silent treatment. This one is difficult. Well, they're all difficult, but the silent treatment is a person that shames you by not using words. How do they do that? They ignore you. They're angry inside. They may be seething inside, but they're giving you a silent treatment that really looks like they are disapproving of you. You don't have the value or the respect of my time or attention. So in a way, they shun you through ignoring you. And that's the silent treatment. Now, these different types, and I just put kind of, if you will, cute descriptors to describe what they are, because we really do see these are the predominant forms of emotional abuse. I want to say again, if you were ever sexually or physically abused, you were automatically emotionally abused. There is a taking away of our emotional dignity when there's other forms of abuse. Now, remember, emotional abuse can stand alone. And that's why it's so cunning and baffling, because, again, it's hard to measure, it's hard to see, but you know if you've experienced it. And again, our definition is experiencing the same treatment, unfair or unjust, by the same person or a group of people over time. And it's not a one-time event, because people do make mistakes. And when a mistake is made, we seek forgiveness. Not with the emotional abuser. They keep doing more of the same. You can see this is a very slow, dehumanizing, degrading, demoralizing effect on a person. Again, to get back to that power and control. So I do want to just let you know that as you kind of dig into healing the scars of emotional abuse, you're going to see more types of abusers. And there are really those that have, if you will, unfortunately, specialized in certain forms of abuse. They're just really good at it. And, the guilt, I've noticed great guilt giver, they're so good at it. And you can walk in a room and you see them and you feel guilty about something. Because they're so skilled, they radiate the guilt projection. And it can be so powerful that you feel that shame, a sense of shame, and that feel that, wow, maybe I shouldn't have been born. And what it does to your thoughts, what it does in your rational thinking, you can't really think clearly when you are receiving emotional abuse, again, over time. And we had this right here, the executive function in the forefront of our brain. And the executive function is where we're supposed to make those wise decisions. When you are victimized by emotional abuse, the ability to make decisions at times gets really difficult. And you will find that one of the things that happens is you feel frozen and you defer decision making over to the abuser. So it's just something to be aware of. Hey, next time we're going to talk about how trauma affects the brain, these different types of emotional abusers. What does it do to us? And then we're going to talk about how do we successfully navigate the emotional abuser in our next session together. Important. And I do want to speak, maybe you've identified and go, well, I feel like maybe I'm fallen over into some emotional abusive tendencies. Sometimes we just learn to repeat what was done to us. Take a pause and just be aware of your words and motivation for saying things. Remember, the emotional abuser really intends to create harm. They want power and control. And begin to look at, is that my motive in saying things? Am I really wanting power and control? Or do I want an authentic, peaceful, joyful relationship? Okay, there is hope.